So I am Shawnee Lavender. I am the Conscious Moms Coach. And normally I'm talking really specifically and narrowly about conscious parenting and some of the questions that come up from my clients, from other parents in my community, the Conscious Moms Circle here on Facebook. Today I wanted to do something that's more an intersection of current events here in the United States and parenting. So it's a little bit different today. What I will say before I really get into today's topic is that even though this is going to be pertinent to parents in particular, I invite you to stay and listen if you are not a parent, and there's an and there, if you're not a parent and you are someone, though, particularly a person who's white like me, who is really concerned about the events that took place in Charlottesville, Virginia this past weekend, about other similar events, the murders by Dylan Roof of the parishioners at the church in Charleston, South Carolina. You can get the drift, right, of things I'm talking about. So racism, and the effects of that backwards way of thinking that it has on some people. But it's not just that. So if those things concern you and you just want to be concerned about them, this video may not be for you. If you're concerned about those type of things and you want to do your part to help change those from being things that happen I know they're not frequent on the one hand, but in my opinion, they're far too frequent. So if that's of interest to you, then I invite you to listen as well. So that's just a few preliminary comments. I don't know what it is. I just started coughing. Hold on just one second. Those of you that watch my normal videos, you know I've had a cough, and I still have it just a little bit. So it's going away. That's what I hope. So let me say, actually, I have 4 more notes that I want to mention before I actually launch into the topic at hand. So first, I want to say that this is a sensitive topic. It's sensitive for me. It's sensitive for many others. And a lot of people have big emotions around it. So please keep that in mind while you're watching this video, in terms of, in terms of comments you might want to make or questions. Keep in mind that this is not just a blasé thing we're talking about. It's a big deal. So please keep that in mind. Now, I also want to say that this video is from my perspective, of course, because that's the only perspective I can hold. And that is a perspective of someone who is privileged, meaning I'm white, and therefore I'm privileged. I'm also educated. I have a master's degree, so I have those things going for me. I'm a spiritual person by nature. I'm middle-aged. And again, as I said, I'm white. And as you can see, I'm white. Also, I'm not an expert. I have facilitated a program in my own town that is about racial disparities and how to bridge that gap, and about the history of my community. And so I do have some experience around these issues, but I'm not here as an expert. I'm sharing some of my personal perspective. And so please keep that in mind as well. That's what I'm here to do, share from my space. And that being said, my third point is that I'm not saying you should do anything. I'm not saying you should do as I do. I'm sharing some ideas, and only you can choose what is the best next step for you. So I hope that, excuse me, this will be some food for thought, um, speaking to your heart, speaking to your head, and give you some things to mull over in what I hope will be a positive way and a creative way so that you can make choices that fit for you and your family. So know that I'm not doing shoulds. I don't do that. That's not my style. I'm going to share some of my perspective and some of what my family is doing. This video is geared towards parents of young children. And to me, I define that as age 10 and under. So it still could be applicable for parents of older children, and yet you'll see why, in part, why it's for younger children. And there's going to be 3 parts to this video. After this, this is the introduction. There's going to be 3 parts in the main section of this video. And those are what I see as specific challenges for white progressives, those people who, again, care about the things that happened in Charlottesville, don't want to see them happen again, don't want to see racism get tucked back into the margins of society where it can turn into the gangrenous wound that it obviously is today. So we're wanting to heal it. We're wanting to get it out and get it handled. So that's what I mean when I say progressive. So number 1, specific challenges for white progressives. Number 2, what to tell our children. And again, it's those young children, what to tell them. And number 3, what we can do to change our culture. So that's what I'm going to be talking about. If you want to stick around, I hope you will. Let me get my notes and I'm going to get going. So while there are many challenges for all of us related to issues of racism, I think there are 2 specific challenges that at least I want to talk about in this video for white progressives. So here's the first one, is that when we think of ourselves as progressive, which we might use words like open-minded or spiritual or evolved or enlightened, or not that, and that being the white supremacists, we can easily believe we're not part of the problem. So you can look at those videos or pictures. I don't watch the videos. I try not to look at some of the pictures. You can, as a progressive, if that's how you self-identify, you can look at that easily and go, well, I'm not that. I'm not that. That's not me. So it's really easy to create separation right there and say, oh, that's not me. I'm not the one creating this problem. But what happens when we do that is that we really start to exempt ourselves from responsibility for changing the situation, because we say, well, it's not me. I didn't do it. We sound like sometimes our children do, right? I didn't do it. It wasn't me. It wasn't me. Well, yeah, I get it. It wasn't you, unless you were at that rally in Charlottesville. Yes, that's not you specifically. However, if you're a white person living in the United States, and let me clarify, maybe you're a white citizen of the United States, you are benefiting from racism, which is a system. It's an entrenched system. It's in all areas of our lives. And so we've benefited from it. Now, you can be poor and still benefit from racism. Now, you're not going to benefit from classism. You can be a woman and benefit from racism. So, we often want to say, especially when we see something we don't like, we just want to go, that's not me. I didn't do it. I'm not that. I'm a good white person. Yeah, whatever. Let's get over it, because that's not helping us. Saying that we are the good white people, it hasn't fixed the problem. So we need to stop doing that, in my opinion. So that's one of the real challenges for us is that we look out there and we say, oh, well, that's not me. So, I'm already helping, I'm doing stuff. And it's not to negate the things you may be doing and the things I've done. It's not to do that. It's simply to say, you know what? Yes, we're still part of it. we are still part of that system. So I think that instead of feeling pride and go, whew, yeah, thank goodness that's not me, is to say, I didn't go to that. I don't believe in those views. And I am benefiting from those views and the way they're entrenched in our systems. So it's just being truthful. It's not beating ourselves up. It's not congratulating ourselves. It's saying, yes, I am part of this system. And that's really important, because only when we see that we have a stake in it, not just because, oh, gee, I don't want to then get, beat up by a Black person later because they're mad. That's not the stake we have in it. The stake we have in it is, yeah, you know what? We are part of it. It's our culture. It's the communities that we're creating. And so the only way to effectively make change is when we see that we're part of it in the first place. So if we keep wanting to push it off and say it's only those people, we're going to be right back where we are when our children are grown up. So that's the number one problem I see or challenge I see for white progressives. Excuse me. All right. The second challenge is what I've seen a lot on Facebook over the past several days, is that in our own outrage and fear and despair and our shock, we may get caught in our own hatred and judgment. And that's natural, right? That's we're human beings. So we see something out there that we find abhorrent, and we have an emotional reaction. And so it can be cathartic. It's okay to have those emotions. I'm not saying don't go there, because one, you're not going to prevent yourself from going there. You're a human being and you're going to feel your feelings. What I am saying is that when we get stuck there and when we act from that place, we are creating more of what we say we don't want. So it might not be racism that we're creating, but we are creating that enmity, that same enmity that those marchers, those white supremacists, KKK, however they choose to identify themselves, it's that same enmity. So even though we can say, well, I'm self-righteous and I have the right views, they have the wrong one, enmity in us is still enmity. It's not, there's no like, oh, well, that's good enmity and that's bad enmity. No, it's hatred, it's division. And so that's a real danger for us. And I'll give my own example. So I see those pictures, and immediately for me, my judging mind goes to what I think of those people is I say they're idiots. That's judgmental. Now, I can load up a lot of evidence and say, well, here's 10 reasons why they're idiots. But again, it's not solving the problem. It's creating another wedge between me and them. And let's just say I was talking to one of them. How likely are they going to want to be to hear me when either explicitly I'm saying, by the way, you're an idiot, or implicitly in my attitudes and my bearing and the way I look at them and the way, I huff when they talk or I roll my eyes. If I do those things, or I think I'm hiding them, as parents, other people like our children, you can't hide that stuff from them. They get it. So do adults. They may not be as aware of it, but they do get it. So if that's the place I'm coming from, and I say, well, I really want to heal this, I want to help these racists, get over their stuff, they're not going to want to get over it when I'm coming at them and calling them, jerks and things like that. They're not going to do that. So it's creating, when we stay stuck in that hatred of our own and that resentment of them, all we're doing is creating more division, more againstness rather than more togetherness. So it's a real danger, because it is where many of us go. Like I said, I've seen it all over Facebook. And yeah, it's natural. So I'm not judging us. I'm simply saying that we have to move out of that space. We can say, this is not something I believe in. Yeah, we can have discernment. Absolutely. Yeah, this is not what I want to see more of. Be discerning. don't be judgmental. Don't say those are big assholes, because that's not going to help. It never has helped and it never will help. So we need to move beyond that. So that, again, I see that in me. I'm not saying, you're the ones doing it. I'm saying, yeah, I notice that there's a part of me that simply wants to rail and curse and damn those people and condemn them for what I find to be horrific acts, and even not just acts, but, beliefs. I find them totally abhorrent. However, that holding on to that and holding on to my self-righteousness is not going to be part of a solution. All it's going to do is create more division. So those are the two dangers that I see for progressives: thinking A, that we're not part of the problem, and B, getting so into our againstness against the white supremacists that we're creating more division and more things to fight against. Just mute myself, my convenient little mute button. So that's part one of the video. Part two is now about maybe that more pressing concern that I have heard from parents, and certainly was true for me. Well, sort of true. I'll get to that in a minute. But, it's that, oh my God, what kind of world are we living in? My children are here. What do I say to them? How do I explain this? How do I make sense of it? What do I do with them? So that's what this next part of the video is about. So again, remember, I'm talking about young children, age 10 and younger. So the number one thing I encourage you to do is do not talk to your children about the events in Charlottesville. Here's the reason for that. And just as a bit of background, I am, in addition to my parent coaching, I am a simplicity parenting coach. And one of the tenets of simplicity parenting is about filtering out the adult world so that children can really have their childhood, that precious, magical time where all things are possible and, there's no worries or no cares. So that's a little background for you. So that is why I say, do not talk to young children about the events of Charlottesville. Our children benefit strongly, I can't say that word enough, strongly, from having a sheltered childhood. They need that time. It's like they are a delicate spirit. They were born from spirit, and they have a very intimate connection with God, spirit, source, whatever words you use for that bigger life energy. They are born with that, it's like they're plugged in to source energy. And so living in the real world is going to be an assault on that connection. And over time, what happens is, and it happens to us adults, is that many of us lose our connection to source energy. And there's a lot of downsides to that. But that's not what this video is about. So our children, so here they are, they're born with that deep connection. They are, full of their wisdom, even though they can't talk to us. They know everything they ever need to know when they're born. And so life is going to try and, not purposely, but it's going to nick at that, and it's going to cause chinks in that protective layer that they're born with. And so what we want to do, despite some people's ideas, we want to really shelter that more. We want to help protect that, because here's two things, is that when our children are exposed too early to the issues of the adult world, it makes them more fragile, because now they are not in a spiritual place nor in a mental cognitive development place where they are equipped to deal with adult issues. That's not their job. Otherwise, they'd be adults. They're children. They're supposed to deal with childhood issues, not adult issues. Now, it's true that many of them don't end up having that luxury, whether they get a serious illness, or they live in a home where there's, domestic abuse, or they, have really a lot of lack in their family. They're poor, things like that. So not all children get that, but all children deserve that. So when we talk to our children about adult issues, it is really putting lots of holes in that protective shield that they have around them. So you don't want to do that. It's going to get holes in it anyway. So don't poke more holes in it by talking to them about adult issues. The other thing to remember about that protected childhood is what that does, besides protecting them and helping them keep that spiritual wisdom intact, is that it allows them that time to develop cognitively, mentally, to be able to really be more prepared than to deal with crappy adult stuff. It would be really nice to be a kid and not know about Charlottesville. I wish I didn't know about it, but I do, and I'm an adult. That's my responsibility to deal with those things. It's not a 9-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 6-year-old. It's not their responsibility. So we want to protect their childhood so that A, they can be their strongest spiritual self, that connected to divine source, and B, they can get to a place of mental, emotional development so that when those issues are more appropriate for them, that they have the tools with which to deal with them. In fact, frankly, I would argue that part of some of the root cause, this is just my conjecture, but I'm going with it because it works for me. Part of the root cause of people who end up in various very dangerous belief systems and debilitating belief systems like racism are people who are really have some real big lack in their lives. I would say mainly lack of love and lack of self connection and awareness. So they have that. And they also don't have the mental tools like critical thinking to be able to discern truth from reality. So they're feeling really vulnerable and afraid for reasons we may or may not know about. They're feeling really vulnerable, afraid, and somebody comes to them with something that sounds very enticing. Oh, it's these people with this skin color or this nationality or, with these traits that are the root of your problem. So if you're feeling really vulnerable and somebody very persuasive comes to you with what sounds like a very convincing argument and you don't have the mental skills to be able to go, is that a load of BS, and propaganda, or is it really the truth? If you don't have the skills, it's really easy to then go, oh yeah, I guess I want to join this group because I feel better about myself now that I'm in it. So we don't want our children to go there, whatever the belief system is, whether it's racism or something else. So when we shelter their childhood, we give them that time, especially if they're taught then critical thinking skills, we give them that time to really develop those muscles so that they then have capacity to problem solve once they get to be adults. Okay, so it's a little bit of soapbox. I'm going to go there again, but the number one thing you want to do with your young child is do not talk to them about the specific events of Charlottesville or at Charleston or, Trayvon Martin, any of those. Don't talk to them about those specifics. That's not their issue to deal with. That's our issue as adults. Second thing, it's along the same thing though. If you've already talked with your young child or they have learned about the events of Charlottesville, here's what I'd suggest is do your best to take their pulse on it in a casual way. So you might, hey, do you remember yesterday when the news was on? If sort of you're aware that they know about this. Remember yesterday when the news was on and they were talking about some people got hurt at a gathering in Virginia. You just sort of, again, don't give them all the details, but sort of like, yeah, you remember that thing? and then suss out, where are they with it? Did it go over their head? Did it, whoop, just wasn't on their radar even though they heard it? Did it go in and now are they sort of worrying about things or wondering about things? So suss out where they are. If they are not disturbed by it, or again, it didn't register on their radar, then ixnay, no more conversation. Okay, great. Thanks. Let's go play Legos, whatever. So switch the conversation and know that, okay, that wasn't a thing. If they are showing some signs of distress, worry, confusion, then some things that you can do is help reassure them. So you want to take some time to get close with them, to snuggle, give lots of physical affection and love and gentle words, and help them. Even if you're not totally reassured, that's not the point. This is one of those things of, as an adult, we deal. So we work with our own emotions, we calm ourselves, and then we present for our child a very deliberate experience of, in this case, reassurance, calm, and, it's okay. So again, even though you may not think that, you do your own work to get those emotions out of your way so that you can let your child know, yeah, that sounded scary. Whatever they've said, like, oh, I heard somebody got killed. Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? And we're okay. And let's send that person some love, whatever fits with your belief system. But, so you can do those things. The focus, though, is on creating that reassurance for your child, letting them know it's okay. Again, you're taking it back from them. That's not your worry, kiddo. What I want you to be able to focus on is back to school, or, getting a good night's sleep, or playing, whatever. I'm going to hold this. I'm the adult. I'm going to hold this, and you're okay. It's okay. So you're taking that back from them because it's not their responsibility. So you want to relieve them of that responsibility. The other thing you want to do, sort of going back, is create some boundaries. So you might, if you have friends come over, or neighbors, or you're talking with somebody and your child comes in, you want to be able to put the kibosh on those conversations. So in our house, we will interrupt friends, and neighbors will say, we don't talk about that when Grayson's around, our daughter's around. And you're not making them wrong. You're just saying, here is a boundary we have. That's not something that we have our adult conversations when it's adults. So you may want to put a boundary in place there if you haven't already. And the third thing, this is not so much about what you tell your children. I personally believe, though, it is valuable for them in sort of the broad scope of thinking and in the long run with their lives, for us to be real with them. So just a minute ago, I said, don't be real, right? Not exactly what I said. I said, deal with your own emotions, get through your own stuff. To me, that's a little bit different, because there are times when just it's all right. We want to project that calm, even if we sometimes feel not so calm inside. That's part of what we want to be able to help our children settle into their calmness by being as calm as we can. That being said, and it may seem like a paradox, but trust me, it's not, I think it is really valuable for them to see us as real human beings with emotions and different thoughts. And so, you don't need to hide your emotion. Now, if you're feeling really overwhelmed by your emotions, or they're like, really big, that can be scary and not appropriate for our young children in particular. So yeah, get support from other adults, your therapist, your coach, your pastor, however you get that support. Get that support so you can be supported and not be dealing with those things alone. Then, though, again, those are things to set aside. But let me give an example, and hopefully this will be clear in what I'm saying. So last night after dinner, after we had done some cleaning up, I put on a CD of a musician I love, and shout out to her here, Maggie Longmire. If you've never heard of her, she's a wonderful songwriter, singer out of Tennessee. Anyway, um, she has songs that for me are very spiritual, very much connecting to the truths about life and things like that. And so I was laying on the couch at one point listening to her songs and just really being present with how I felt. Part of me with the North Korea stuff that's been happening lately with Charlottesville, with the person who is in the White House now, I, in some ways, am very unsettled, and would like to be a kid more than an adult right now, but that's not the case. So I'm aware that I do have a lot of big feelings right now. And so I laid on the couch, and as I was hearing these songs, and I can even feel it now, you know, I was sad and I was confused and I was worried. And I also was really grateful. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot to be grateful for. There's hard stuff right now, and there's a lot to be grateful for. And so I was having this whole uh, series of flowing emotions. And so I lay there. I don't know if my husband noticed. He was in the kitchen, but he came over. He also, really likes the songs, and he came over and sat next to me, and we both cried. We held hands and we were crying. Not big, just we were emotional. Our daughter, about a minute and a half into him and I being together, and having our cry, she came over and she's like, me too, me too. And she jumped on the couch with us and she snuggled right next to me. And, my tears are on my cheeks, and, she's wiping them and just feeling them. And she said, you're sweaty. I'm like, I'm not sweaty. Those are tears. But, then she's like, oh, I didn't realize that was by your eye. And so we didn't talk. We didn't say, hey, by the way, there's these things been happening. We're really concerned, blah, 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 blah. Nothing. However, she experienced that we were having big feelings. And so I believe that is one of the ways we can be real with our children, is we can, show that, yeah, we're adults, but guess what? Sometimes we get scared. If they want to know what, just stuff. How, and you can reflect it back to them. How the other day you were scared about, going to that camp, or you were starting to feel worried about having a new teacher, whatever is going on for them. You reflect back and say, you know what? Yeah, I'm like that too. Sometimes just stuff comes up and I feel sad or scared for a little while. You don't have to reference Charlottesville happened, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to go there. You can still be real though and say, yeah, I'm human and I'm feeling some feelings right now. So that's what I would say about what to tell them. Don't tell them about Charlottesville. If it has been brought up, find ways to create reassurance for them. Learn about where they're at first, but then if they are concerned in some ways, is do your best to create reassurance and let them know that you're going to take ownership of that they can rest easy, that's something mama's got or daddy's got. You can do your stuff. I'll deal with this. And then the third piece is, yeah, be yourself, be real without being revealing. Okay. So those are the specifics there. And I want to share a few things along the third piece of the video that I said, which is what we can do to change our culture. So let me go ahead and do that. And let me say that with this piece, this is the one that I have the fewest concrete examples. This is the one that, frankly, I'm still in that place of, where am I at? What do I do? Yesterday, I was out on a run and I stopped one random Black man and went up to him and, I said, hey, this is sort of weird. But I'm really sorry for the crappy things that white people do. I wanted to say that. I mean, Yeah, he probably has white people in his life, and so he knows it's not all people. And yet, to me, it was one of those times of saying, hey, this really sucks and it's not okay with me. And I want you to know I'm sorry. So that's what I did. And then I stopped in at a neighbor's house who I don't know very well, but I knocked on his door and same thing. And we had about a 10-minute conversation. And I'm not saying that's healing the world and that's solving racism, but to me, this is one of those opportunities that we get. It's the cool thing about being adults, even though it's hard, is that life presents us with something out there, and we can either recoil from it and retreat in our, I don't know what the hell to do, which is pretty much where I'm at, in the big grand scheme of things. I don't know what to do, but I did something. I did something in front of me. It's like, this is what came up for me. This is what felt right to me at that moment. So that's sort of my preface to say, again, I have some ideas, and this is one where, as you're watching this video, please feel free to say, here's what I'm doing. Here's, what I'm experimenting with. Here's, what other people who I really trust and believe in are recommending. Here's what Black friends of mine are saying, to say, hey, please do this, whatever, please. This is a time in this video to share your resources, because to me, that's our opportunity now. Is like, no one of us has the answer. We all have ideas though. So let's put them forward and work with it, because I'm not willing to keep having this happen, because I don't want my daughter to get into older childhood and have to tell her about these kind of things. I want her to get to read about them in a history book and say, man, y'all were messed up and you guys, you just didn't know a lot. And I'll say, you're right. Isn't it great that we've changed? I mean, that's what I want. I want her to be like, this is so weird. Why did this ever happen? So I don't want her to have them later on. So, those of you that know me, this is what I do, take these little tangents, even though I have my notes. So number one thing, or not number one, but the first thing on my list that I'd suggest is get educated. So as I mentioned in the video earlier, instead of simply saying, well, I'm not that, I'm not a member of the KKK, or I don't believe in white supremacist things, learn about racism, learn about classism, learn about sexism, learn about the things that you want to say you're not part of, and see how, yeah, you may not be part of it, and yet you may be benefiting from it, or you may not realize there are some things that you didn't know that you didn't know. So get educated, take time to learn. A couple of resources, or one resource that I think is really valuable. Two resources. The first one is Howard Zinn's A People's History of the United States. So read books like that give a real picture, not revisionist history or the history of the victor. Learn about what really happened. What really happened with Native Americans? What really happened with colonization? What really happened with slavery? It's not just enough to know that, oh yeah, we traded rum for slave. Yeah, but learn more than you might have learned in school. So read books like that. Another great place to go is the implicit association test. You can Google it, or if anybody else uses any other search engine, do that, but I use Google. Implicit association test. And those are tests that you can take on your computer. And what you learn about, it's really fascinating to do, is you can learn about your own unconscious biases. So you may say, oh yeah, I'm progressive, or, I like people of all colors. And there's truth there. And there's also likely truth that you're not aware of, that you have unconscious biases. And so to me, that's really valuable to have a more accurate picture of who you are, not to shame you or anything like that, just to go, yeah, you know what? Yes, you sometimes act on those biases and you're not aware of it. So learn what those biases are. And seek out programs to learn, I'd say not just read, But there's in my community, there's a program that I referenced earlier called Building Bridges, and it talks about racism in a broad way, but and in American, how has it manifested itself through American history? But it also talks about, and the people who get involved in the program, it talks about what's the history of racism in this community. So I can learn about, like the part of town I live in now, there was a time when people didn't want to live here, white people. And so who got to live here? The Black people, because nobody else wanted to live here. So that's where they could live. But then later on, and now it became and is becoming gentrified, which what does that mean? White people, we move back in and we take it from the Black people. So, it's like learn about what really went on in your own community and talk with people in your community, talk with people of color in your community, so you can really learn about what's actually real out there, not just stories and not even just reputable news sources like the Washington Post or New York Times. Yes, those are great, but learn about, a broader scope and also learn specifically about these issues. The second thing you can do, especially as it relates to parenting, is really help your child appreciate differences and develop the character and courage to be part of the solution. Because let's just say we adults don't get our act together and we don't solve racism by the time our young children get into older childhood or adulthood. Let's just say, in case, hopefully not, but just in case, you want them to have those skills to be able to deal with this, because obviously we have not dealt with it. So shelter them now from those adult problems, yet help them develop their problem solving ability, help them develop the willingness to go to hard places and work through it and not just say, oh, I've had it, I can't deal with this. Help them learn communication skills, listening being a really important one of them. Help them learn about conflict resolution. Help them learn those skills of critical thinking that help them be able to look at things out in the world. And hold on a second, I'm being very distracted by a cat. Hold on just 1 second. Very weird. I don't think I've ever had my Facebook Live interrupted by my cat, but there you go. So sorry about that. Those critical thinking skills, so that they, again, who knows where they'll go in life, but they may get to a point in their life where somebody is promising them, here's the answer. Here's the good stuff. It could be drugs. It could be, sex before they're ready for sex. It could be, beliefs that really don't serve them and are divisive. Whatever it is, you want them to have the skills to be able to go, let me think about that. Let me really consider what you're saying or what I'm reading here, what I'm seeing on my smartphone. You want them to have those skills to be able to be more discerning. So help them develop those skills. And that clarity of mind, those skills will really, really pay off now, even if they're 4, as you start to help them bit by bit in age appropriate ways to learn to solve problems, to be accepting of difference and appreciative of difference, seeing the value of diversity. Also, though, again, being able and willing to go to those hard places, those uncomfortable places. Those are skills that we need, because let me tell you this, I know you already know this, but conflict is not the place usually people want to spend time. So if we're not willing to sit with our own discomfort, we're not going to be approaching these people, whoever they are. We're not going to approach them to have conversations, because we're going to be like, oh, that's too uncomfortable. I don't like it. I don't like the way I feel. We got to get over that. We got to be able to sit there through those tougher conversations. That's being an adult. That's what being an adult is. So help your children bit by bit as they grow in age appropriate ways, learn those skills and appreciate them for that, and do that in your family. Model that. Don't use timeouts. Don't use rewards and punishments. All those things are the tools of the weak because they don't take any skill. They take no skill whatsoever. It takes a lot more skill and more practice to learn how to work through problems in a way that everybody is heard and everybody gets some piece of what they're needing. So another soapbox, but do that. It's number 2. The third thing, I talked about this earlier, I'm going to talk about it again, is really focus on healing the hatred within yourself. So that's part of my work this week is, and beyond, but specifically this week, is I'm doing my best to have empathy for the people who were there as white supremacists. Because, well, not because, one of my beliefs is that they got lost and that's why they're there. That's not out of a judgment. I just really think that it's not serving them. And it really is a lot of lies that are fed to them. And so it's really not actually, it's not just about the beliefs. It's that it really is a bunch of lies. So I'm attempting to have compassion and empathy and ask myself and even do my best to learn more. What is it that makes it easy for somebody to choose hate? Because I can tell you, whenever I feel hate, it's not a very good feeling. So I can't imagine these people really, really feel good. You know, they might feel ego inflated. They might, I don't know, that you can, not a feeling, but they might have that sense of ego gratification. They might have that sense of community of, you know, hey, I'm with these other people who believe like me, because we're humans. We crave that. We crave community. We crave belonging. So rather than judging them, I'm doing my best to try and understand and empathize so that I don't add my own small-mindedness to this experience, because that's the hard work. It's really hard for me. It's much easier to say they're wrong, I'm right, and that's the end of it. But to be able to say, you know what, there's good in them, and I want to know who they are and why they came to where they are. I think personally, that's going to heal me because I'm not going to have that division within myself. I'm going to have more love present in me. And on the chances that I do run into them, or I run into somebody else who I can only at first see as the other, by practicing now with these white supremacists, I develop more of an ability to see that the other is not the other. The other is me. They're another human being who may think differently, dress differently, talk differently, do differently. And yet fundamentally at their core, they are like me. I am like them. And so I really urge us all to, rather than try and just put all our effort out there and fix what we see as problems out there, is really spend a lot of time fixing in here. So I'm just all soapbox in this part of the video, but that's what you get. 2 last things. Engage with other adults. So that's critically important. Again, it's not talking with our kids about this, it's talking with other adults. I'm really fortunate I get to participate this fall in a racial disparity training at my daughter's school. And I'm really grateful for that. Even though I'm a little nervous, I'm like, oh no, what am I going to learn now? I'm grateful. It's like I get this chance to learn what I don't know that I don't know, and to be opened up so that I can grow and I can make more of my contribution. So engaging with other adults, especially when part of our engagement, a big part of our engagement, is listening rather than talking, which I've been talking for a while, so obviously, I like to talk. However, it's that piece of, who are you? What's your story? how did you come to your set of beliefs? What are you doing that helps you be courageous? My husband is a lot older than I am. Part of what I learned from him is, how do you stay on that path when you've seen a lot of years of, at some level, seeming no change at one level and sometimes seeming to be regression? How do you keep up the hope? I'm a really hopeful, optimistic person, and yet that's part of what I get sometimes from talking to my elders and hearing their stories. It's like, yeah, how do you keep it up? So listen to others, engage with them, be willing to, don't poke anybody with a stick. Do, though, be willing to say, well, why do you think that? That's why, or, I hear you saying this, and yet what I'm noticing is that. You don't have to judge them. Be willing, though, to have some of those conversations. Those, again, not always comfortable, but really valuable conversations to ask somebody, yeah, tell me more. I don't understand that. Okay. Yeah. Learn. So, engage with the Black people that you know, or if you don't know Black people, get to know Black people and, ask them, tell me about your experience. What is it been like? What has it been like for you in our community? Or, whatever. Find out real stories so that you actually have something to hold on to, something real, rather than just, racism is bad because this. It's like, yeah, see how it does affect real people. Not just reading a Howard Zinn book, which is great. Talk to real people, engage, be willing to ask those hard questions, be willing to be vulnerable yourself and say, I noticed that when I walk past this part of town, I feel afraid and I'm sort of embarrassed by that. Whatever it is, have those conversations and let's start making the change, rather than just thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to go attend a rally. That can be good. And yet, let's do something. Time for talking, I think, is mostly done. And you'll be glad to know that I'm mostly done with talking. The final thing I would say is, give those in positions of authority your input and feedback about decisions they're considering. So if your state or your municipality, whatever, well, I guess it wouldn't be your municipality, but your state is wanting to pass voter ID laws that say people have to have an ID, you're going to hear lots of reasons why. But really what that's about and who that disenfranchises are the people who don't tend to have IDs. Yes, if you're a white person and you're a working person, you bet you have a driver's license because you got a car, you drive to work. Of course. So you don't think it's a big deal. You're like, whatever, I'll bring my ID. But there are people who don't have IDs. They don't drive. They've never needed to, or they live in the city. And guess who some of those people are? Black people. Not always, but it's like there are reasons why these laws get passed by the people in power. It's because they're in power and they're not all racist, and yet they enjoy having the power that they have. And so they look for ways sometimes to keep other people from having access to that same power. So don't just go, oh, it's no big deal. I have my ID. It shouldn't be a big deal. Everybody can bring it. No, those are discriminatory laws. They're created for specific reasons, many of which are outright discrimination, and some are simply an unconscious desire to hold on to the power that we as white people have. So speak up for people who those laws are going to affect. If the government, as this is happening here in North Carolina, one of the great states, not so much, but anyway, they are cutting funding that helps provide legal aid for the poor. So yeah, it doesn't affect you directly maybe, but it affects people, and it will disproportionately affect Black people and certainly poor people, people who don't have access to other resources like you do. So don't sit around and go, oh, well, no big deal. I'm only going to call my representatives when they're threatening to take away my health care. No, look for what are they doing that is going to hurt other people in your community, and stand up for those people. Stand up with those people. that's what we're here for. That's what community means. It's about standing up together and saying, that's not going to happen on our watch. We're not going to let you do that. You need to find another way, legislature, if you want to save money. Let's look at other ways that we can really cut that are going to more equitably distribute their downside. So learn about things like, what's a regressive tax, sales tax? What's a progressive tax, income tax? Learn about those things and use your critical thinking skills. If you don't have them, go get them, learn them, but use them to really question, what am I being told here? And then give those people who are in those decision-making positions, whether it's your city council or your homeowners association, whatever it is, the president, make your voice be heard and say, you know what? I'm going to start advocating for real solutions to the problems of racism. So it's not just about talking a good talk or feeling good about ourselves. It is about taking action. So that's what I have to say. Again, please, especially with this last part where I was saying, here's some of the things we can do to change our culture. Please share your ideas. If you have specific resources, website links, do that. And because that's how we're going to make it different, is we'll work together. If we don't work together, then our children will be doing the same thing rather than going, way to go. They'll be instead of reading history books and saying, wow, you adults really stepped up and got your acts together and stopped, kicking the can down the road. They're going to say, way to go for addressing hard issues. That's what I'd like. That's what I want for them. I want them to say, woo, glad you solved that. And they can solve whatever the issue is of their time. Let's make this one of the things that we adults really step up to and say, enough is enough. Let's make this history in the United States and really change. So I am Shawnee Lavender. I am the Conscious Moms Coach, talking normally all about parenting, but this was a parenting related thing. So if you are so inclined, let me know what you thought about today's video. And my rule, and just so you know, is that if you want to engage in polite conversation, respectful conversation, I'm all about that. If that's not what you want, I will delete what I can delete and block you. And not because we can have disagreement. That's not a problem. Disrespect. So my feed, I get to control that piece. So, but again, if you want to engage in some dialogue in a respectful way, or you have some comments that you want to share, you can do that, and I'll be glad to engage with you. So I wish you all a wonderful day, and if you want to connect with me further, you can find me on my YouTube channel, Shawnee Lavender Coaching, here on Facebook in my Facebook group, the Conscious Moms Circle, or on my own website, ShawneeLavender.com. So thanks so much. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye.